Most books try to affect personality ethics, which in turn attempt to alter just attitudes and behaviors. This book stands out because it attempts to change character ethics, which helps change perceptions and paradigms. Imagine yourself trying to put on a pair of tight jeans. You eventually get them over your thighs and you try to zip up the zipper and you're struggling. You're sucking in your gut in order to try to button that button, and you realize that you have gained a lot of weight. Imagine yourself questioning if God exists, asking what happens after death. Imagine being told by your boss that the company's payroll can no longer support your position. Imagine your relationship ending with your long-term girlfriend or boyfriend. These are all things that may happen to us because we're not effective. That's what this book is. There are 7 habits of highly effective people. I'll go into each habit one by one, explaining what it is and how to tie it into your own life. The first habit we're going to discuss is being proactive. I have a coworker who is always disgruntled. He talks about how terrible his life is, how his neighbors hate him, how his parents don't talk to him, about how his brothers and sisters are better than he is, how his girlfriend doesn't care what he thinks, how terrible the weather is. The first habit talks about realizing that there are 2 ways to live life. The first way is to live a reactive lifestyle. Things just seem to happen to you. You have no focus on being proactive in these issues because you're too busy reacting. You can either act or be acted upon, and that's being proactive. We all have a circle of concern, and a circle of concern is everything a person is concerned about, whether it be politics, personal health, sports teams, relationships. Within our circles of concern, we have a circle of influence. These are things that concern us that we have some type of control over. This is the circle we should be proactive in. Habit 1 talks about being proactive. Well, this means that Ken should be identifying that he has to be proactive and focus on the things he actually has an influence over. Instead of Ken worrying about what the weather's like outside or what his parents think about him or how successful his brothers and sisters are, he should be focusing on his circle of influence, the things he can change. His education level, his ability to produce more wealth, his health, his activity, his depth of relationships, his hobbies. Those are the areas of his life he should be focusing on, that he should be proactive in. If he's proactive within this circle of influence, his circle of influence grows inside of his circle of concern. And that's the first habit, is to be proactive. My brother works for a computer company. He knows a computer inside and out. He knows hardware, he knows software, he knows how to code many different languages in computer programming. And he started at this company pretty much from the bottom. He's developed his skills and he's developed his reputation within the company to the point where people respect him. He's the go-to guy for tasks, for projects. A manager position opened up in the company and my brother had vision towards that management position. That was his goal. He amped up his working habits. He studied coding. He was more productive. He helped out more, but he didn't get the promotion. My brother and I were talking about this, and I asked him, quite frankly, what he had done to work towards the promotion. My brother realized he did not work towards his goal of being a manager. And that's what this concept is begin with the end in mind. What you have to do is you have to envision your end goal before you work towards something. You have to take actions towards those goals too. When we start towards something, we should always think of our destination first, and then of how we're going to get there. It's easy to get caught up in an activity trap, to climb harder up the ladder of success one rung at a time, to busy ourselves, just to realize that the ladder's leaning against the wrong wall. Imagine we applied my brother's strategy to driving to Chicago from Florida. Before he started the trip, he never looked up a route, he never opened a map, he never bothered to even turn on a GPS. He would get in the car and he would start driving. He would make great turns. He would have great driving habits. He would plan when he would stop for gas. He'd get on the interstate. He'd drive fast. He'd have very good defensive driving techniques. Hours or days into the drive, he'd pull off the interstate and realize that he's in Denver. He's nowhere near Chicago. The correct way to get to Chicago would be to open a map or open a GPS and type in our end destination. To actually read the directions, we'd have to understand which interstate we're going to get on. We'd have to understand the length of the trip. We'd have to understand all these things and then take actions towards driving to Chicago. And if my brother were to have done that in his professional career, then he would recognize that I want to be manager one day. Well, the qualities of being a good manager are not necessarily just being a good worker. I have to take leadership roles in different projects. I have to get things done. My brother then took those directions and applied them, and he eventually got to it. This is the second habit of begin with the end in mind. Imagine waking up a little bit late in the morning and realizing you have no time to work out. You have no time to make breakfast. So you grab a Pop-Tart and head out for work. And you get to work and you sit down at your desk, and then you have your to-do list from the day before. You start working diligently towards your tasks for the day, and your boss interrupts you. He walks into the office with a stack of papers and says, "This is a project I need done today. It's a priority for me." So you begin working hour upon hour on this project, and you finally get it done. You deliver it to your boss, and then you go back to your to-do list just to find out that it's time to go home. And on your way home, you're too tired to even think of what to make for dinner, so you stop by and get fast food. You get home and you start eating your fast food, and you click on the TV. TV's entertaining to you, and then you suddenly realize that it's time to go to bed. You go to bed and you wake up the next morning and repeat. And then you repeat it the next day, then the next day. This is a scenario many people find themselves struggling with. And habit 3 explains a concept a lot of people also struggle with, which is time management. And there are 4 levels of time management that humans developed. The first level of time management is realizing that you have a lot of things to do in a day. So many things you have to do in a day that you might not be able to commit them all to memory. And this is where to-do lists came from. We write everything down. We write everything down so it's like a cognitive relief. We don't have to remember them anymore. But how do things get done? They get done from the top of the list to the bottom of the list. There's no prioritization. This leads us into level 2. This is scheduling on calendars. We write down when each item is going to get done from our to-do list. When we do this, we tend to stack items back to back. And then what happens? Interruptions happen. And that develops into level 3 of time management, which is kind of a daily planning based on our priorities and goals for the day. We look at the to-do list each morning and schedule it all into our day. It keeps us busy. But one interruption can derail us for multiple days. We don't really have a holistic view of what we should be working on and focusing on. This level 3 of time management is where most of us spend our lives. Then there's level 4. This is weekly planning of categorized activities. That's taking every activity on your to-do list and putting it into a certain category, and then planning in your week on a weekly basis these categorized activities. And you categorize your to-do list based on urgency and importance. And I want you to imagine that on a graph. There are things with high importance and high urgency, and then there are things with very low importance or low urgency. And let's first focus on the things that are urgent and important. These are crises or emergencies. They require immediate focus. Too much time with these items causes us to put out fires instead of actually focusing on things that we need to be proactive with. We become very reactive instead of proactive. The next quadrant are not important but urgent things. This is where we spend most of our time. These are interruptions in our days. We think they're urgent because they're other people's priorities, but they're not really urgent to us. This leads to a very short-term focus. This is your cubicle neighbor coming over and asking for help on a project. This is someone from downstairs asking you to run a report. It also makes you feel out of control over your time management. The next quadrant are not urgent and not important things. These are activities that are trivial. They're a big waste of time. If we focus on these activities, we find ourselves getting fired from jobs and being dependent on others. The last quadrant are the not urgent but important items. These are the things we know we should be doing, but they take the back burner. These are things like our health, our relationships. If we had more focus here, there would be a less occurrence of emergencies. But these activities are neglected because they don't feel urgent.
Imagine applying this newfound habit in your daily routine. Imagine waking up to the sound of the beeping alarm clock and realizing that there are some important, but not urgent, things that you need to do before you go into work. So you wake up out of bed and you make your coffee. You drink your coffee and you get prepared to go for your morning run. You strap on your shoes, you run, you get your heart rate up, and you succeed. You feel accomplished that you ran that 9-minute mile you've been working towards. You get back, you shower, and you make yourself a well-prepared breakfast. You can leave for work about a half hour early, and you get to work. You begin to work on those things that are important but not urgent in your professional career. You also begin working on the emergencies, knowing that they are emergencies. However, there are only a few of these emergencies that you should be concerned with, because you've appropriately categorized those that fall into the category of other people's emergencies and not necessarily yours. So you work on these emergencies, then you work on these quadrant 2 activities in your professional career. You find yourself delegating those tasks that fall into the quadrant 3, and you find yourself rejecting the tasks that fall into quadrant 4. You have time in your day to take lunch and reflect on your day and your future plans for that night. You decide on what you're going to eat for dinner and you get back to work. You get back to work and then you realize that, hey, it's nearly time to go home. You start closing out the tasks that you've opened for the day and you drive to the grocery store. While driving to the grocery store, you really start thinking about where you are in your life and how satisfied you are, and where you're going with your life and how to get there. You buy your groceries realizing that shopping for your food is much cheaper than buying your food through a drive-thru. You reflect on your own personal finance situation and determine that you are satisfied and comfortable with where you are in your finances. You get home and you turn on the news while you cook your dinner. And after you're done eating, you sit down and you enjoy your dinner. And after dinner, you pick up one of your favorite books. A book that you dive into and start applying to your life to change for the better. You begin reflecting on your week's plan and tweaking those little areas that you need to tweak before bed, making the conscious choice that tomorrow morning when that alarm clock beeps, that you're going to be getting up and doing the same routine, not only because it's what you need to do, but because it is an important routine. And this is the third habit, is to put first things first. These first 3 habits covered in the book, which are deciding to be proactive within your circle of influence, knowing where you want to be in life, figuring out how to get there and working towards it, and focusing on the important things first to get there. This is how you become more effective as an individual. And the next 3 habits are about being effective as a team. Habit number 4 really is about thinking win-win and having that mentality.